Welcome to the installation tutorial for the Portfolio Backlight kit from backlight4u.com. Taking apart the Portfolio is rather easy, as we only have to remove 6 Phillips head screws. The first 2 are here in the expansion slot, 2 more are hidden under the rubber feet. The last 2 are here inside the battery compartment. But first, we need to disconnect the display cable from the mainboard. First open the brown socket on both sides, then pull out the cable without kinking it. Now the display is only held in place by these 2 plastic covers. They can easily be removed with a fingernail. Then you can remove the display from the case. The next step is optional, but I highly recommend it. The display cable is held in a 2-part cover, and it gets kinked every time you open or close the Portfolio. Rounding down the edges of this cover will prevent damage to the cable in the long run and is not visible later. Disassembling the display itself is a bit more difficult. You have to remove the 2 inner bolts from the hinges. To do this, you squeeze them together with a pair of flat-nose pliers and pull them out while turning back and forth. This requires some patience. You can make it a little easier by putting a little bit of lighter fluid on the hinge with a cotton swab. You have to be careful with the display cable, as it can easily get damaged if you slip with the pliers. I'd also recommend covering the metal contacts with electrical tape so you don't scratch the display glass. As a nice side effect of this procedure, it removes the squeaking of the hinge when opening and closing the display, which occurs on most Portfolios. Next, we have to remove the display glass itself. It helps to heat it up with a hairdryer to soften the adhesive. Then you carefully drive a flat blade under the glass from one side. Be careful not to damage the paint on the back. A plastic tool would be the safer option here. Now just remove 2 more screws and open the clips holding the display together. This can be done easily with fingernails. The PCB is held in place by 4 little screws, which we also need to remove. To get to the LCD itself, we need to remove the metal frame. To do so, you have to bend the tabs on the back to be perfectly straight. Then you can push them out towards the front and lift off the frame. Now we will remove the reflective foil from the LCD. Please be careful here not to damage the polarizer foil. Do not cut along the glass with a blade, but only lift the thin reflective layer. Using gloves helps to prevent fingerprints on the display. Like before, it helps to heat the thing up with a hairdryer. But please heat up the LCD evenly to avoid tension in the glass. Now we have to trim the light guide. It has to be exactly 41 millimeters wide. That is exactly 1.61217322834647 inches, which is why I recommend using a metric ruler for this. I marked the width on both sides with a scalpel, then cut along the metal ruler. Please make sure to do this on a clean surface, especially the thin diffuser foil is delicate and any scratches or fingerprints will be visible later. How you shorten the metal frame depends on what tools you have available. However, do not damage any of the tabs. Before mounting the light guide, clean the LCD from any dust, fingerprints, or residue from the reflective foil. Then put the light guide on the LCD so that the writing is visible and opposite of the cable. Secure it in place with a piece of tape on the cable side. Now remove the protective paper from the LED strip and push it under the light guide. A little push on the glass will make it stay in place. Now place back the metal frame, but don't fasten the tabs yet. First, solder the two wires for the voltage supply to the nearby VRAM chip. The red wire goes on pin 24, the black one to pin 12. Atari was kind enough to print the pin numbers on the PCB. For a first test, we need to connect the display to the portfolio. Just use some tape to hold the batteries in place. Should there be any visible fingerprints or dust, you can now easily open the LCD again. I suggest opening the text editor using the key combination, because the border is a good indicator. If you squeeze the display on the top border, the columns should become visible. Don't worry if some are missing, we will adjust that later. To adjust the LCD, you have to move the glass sideways until all columns are fully visible. Again, use the border of the text editor as an indicator. Once the LCD is adjusted, we can reassemble everything. First, disconnect the display from the portfolio. Carefully hold the display in place while bending the tabs on the back. Before final assembly, I'd recommend doing a final test. Finally, add the adhesive silver strip to the LED bar. This prevents light from shining into the case and reflects it back into the light guide. A cotton swab is perfect for pressing it on. The rest is basically just the same as disassembly and should not require much more explanation. Just make sure to carefully clean the LCD and display glass before putting it back on.